And then like my grandfather, for example, so he said that 2 bombs were dropped on on the airport, basically in his backyard. His house, his neighborhood backed up to an airfield, military airfield. They were so strong that not only my grandfather's pretty hard of hearing, it woke him up.
Wow.
And my uncle had to fix some of the siding on their house. Like, I mean, they took some of the siding off the home.
Wow.
Yeah. So they felt it. I mean, it wasn't, it's not like, oh, okay, there, here's some noises. It's real,
What's going on, guys? It's Brad Hannon.
And Sean Noonan, and welcome to the Insurance Sucks podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Insurance Sucks podcast. Right on the horizon of Will Smith smacking the shit out of Chris Rock. And Eugene Marchenko coming back from overseas rescuing his grandpa. So if you've followed along with the story, we're excited to see, or we're excited to hear. We can maybe see some of it too, but we're excited to hear the whole process, the whole journey, and along with all of the other stuff. But for those that might not know Eugene, why don't you tell them who the heck you are? Because if they don't know you yet, they will know you soon.
Yes. And if you don't know me, you can check out my YouTube channel. But
there you go.
So my name is Eugene Marchenko. I've been an insurance agent for the last 12 years. I'm a go-getter, so I work nonstop. I have 4 kids. I'm married. Been married for 13
Which is why
years.
you work nonstop.
That's why I work nonstop. I love selling insurance. That's my number one passion. I think it's a big jigsaw puzzle, and trying to put all the pieces together to get people come in and buy what I'm selling, I think, is why we do it.
Yeah, man.
So that's me.
I love that. I knew you had a big family. I didn't know you had 4 kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have 4 kids. We just got a house a year ago. I own a truck. But,
a pickup truck.
Because of the house, I probably would not have a truck if it wasn't for the house, but also it's to pull my boat. So
there you go.
He's a homeowner, an insurance agent, and he's got a truck.
And some kids.
And some kids.
Yeah. No, I love fishing and hunting. I spend a lot of time outdoors. If I'm selling, of course, I'm indoors, but a lot of times you'll catch me on the phone with the client from my boat.
That's awesome.
I was in Germany last week, and I was on the phone with the client 7 time zones away.
On Zoe?
Yeah.
On Zoe. Did you catch that? I think he did that on purpose. Yeah. He said on Zoe.
No, I said 7 time zones away.
Oh, 7 time zones away. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Anyways, it's Monday.
I didn't.
It's Monday. Well, before we get into the whole Germany trip and rescuing Grandpa from Ukraine, why don't we talk about kind of how you got into the insurance industry real quick, and then we'll jump quickly to Sean's looking at me. He's like, "What do you mean we're going to talk about insurance?" Yeah. No, I'm just curious how you got. So I don't know if you've ever watched one of the episodes, but the Insurance Sucks podcast, right? For agents, by agents, where we talk about things outside of the insurance world, because there's enough outlets where we talk about the things inside of the insurance world. There's enough events. There's enough YouTube channels out there, right? And including mine. And so this is kind of an creative outlet to talk about the other things we're passionate about: your boat, your truck, your house, your kids, your wife, all of that good stuff. So real quick, how you got into the insurance industry, and obviously, like way back, you're not from here, clearly. Yeah. The accent's not, you weren't born here. So what the heck, how did you get into insurance?
So I was 4 when my family moved here from Ukraine, and I grew up watching my dad being self-employed. He was a business owner. He worked for a company for a long time until he got tired of somebody telling him what to do, and then he bought himself a semi-truck and went to work. And I remember at the age of 14, 15, he would have me wake up. So this is West Coast. I grew up in California. He would have me wake up in so it'd be 8 o'clock on the East Coast, so 5 o'clock on the West Coast. He would have me wake up before school and help him find loads for his truck.
Wow.
And so he taught me how to fill out IFTAs and how to do bill of landings, and he taught me how to negotiate. A truck's moving for $6,000, and 14-year-old me calls him and says, "No, we'll move it for 7,500 or whatever." And so I thanks to my dad, I grew up learning how to talk to people, and so communication I think was really important, and that helped me with that. And I saw what being a business owner did to somebody, the good and the bad, because it's your dad that you're watching.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
you see the freedom that it allows you to have, but it also the pitfall, whereas almost feels like you don't have any freedom at all, right? And so I got to see all that. And so then I started working at Bank of America, and
Oh, you have something in common with Sean,
Right.
ex-bankers.
Yeah, but I don't own a truck. So.
yeah, and I was learned what it's like to learn for your dad, and I did not like it.
Right.
And so I went into the banking industry, and I was a teller. I started as a teller at 17 and a half. And then at 18, as soon as I turned 18, they promoted me to a personal banker because I was able to speak Russian, Ukrainian, and there was a very heavy Russian Ukrainian community where we lived, and they needed somebody who spoke that language. I believe they also found somebody that they could underpay. At 18,
Accurate.
for me, 35,000 a year at 18 was great.
Yeah, no
but
kidding.
To them, that was probably a steal. And this was around 2007, 2008, which we knew what happened then.
Right.
I got married, and I left California, transferred within Bank of America, and moved to South Carolina on a whim. And my wife's sister lived in South Carolina, and so they allowed us to stay in their house for a little while we got on our feet. When we were married 3 months, and so I from the very, very beginning, even like with working with my dad, I knew that I wanted to be self-employed. I just didn't really know what it was yet.
Not
And
trucking,
then
though.
you guys can probably relate to this. I was recruited by somebody
Yeah, no kidding.
who looked at me and said, "Hey, I think you'd be good selling insurance." And
I did not have that experience.
Yeah, Sean didn't get recruited by someone that looked like him. He got recruited by someone that looked much better than him, is what he's saying.
A lot better.
He had a similar experience, but just a lot better looking person recruited.
That's funny. Yeah, and so they brought me in, and I got licensed 2 weeks later. I was out selling policies. I'm 20 years old at the time. I'm 33 now, so that's 13 years ago. I couldn't grow a beard to save my life. The interesting part is my very, very first appointment that I ever ran, I didn't know the difference between deductibles, co-payments, and co-insurance. But
Totally understand.
what I did know is I had a script that worked, and my manager had me memorize it word for word. And this was face to face in my very first appointment. I actually had my script in my notes.
Wow.
So that way, if I lost track, I can flip to my notes, right? Let me write this down real quick. No, what I was doing is making sure I knew where
Let me make sure I say the right thing.
Yeah. And I made my first sale. So my very first appointment, I was able to make my first sale.
Awesome.
And that was an underage health insurance, and I did that for 5 years.
That's awesome. Was that Kemper?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Well, I want to jump right into the grandpa story because it was all over the place, in the insurance industry. Of course, we all saw that you were going there, and it was a really cool thing to do. But it also looked like it was a little fun, and like you said, a logistics nightmare. But like, go back to, I mean, obviously being born in Ukraine, right? Is that what you said? Born in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Did you have other family there? Was your grandpa the last remaining family member you have there?
I have a lot of family there.
Really?
So I have my cousins that we're trying to get out now. I have on both sides of the family, moms and dads, but on my mom's side is more of my immediate family, where it's my first cousin, and then my uncle, my aunt is there. Pretty much all of my mom's side of the family is in Ukraine. My grandpa being the oldest, it was, they need to take care of themselves, and it's hard to take care of yourself when you're also taking care of a 75-year-old. And I said, well, you have willing and able bodies here. Why don't we figure out a way to get him here so that way we can
at least alleviate some of the burden from them.
Because if there's bombs dropping in your backyard, I can get up and go, but to move a 75-year-old isn't as easy as for me to move myself. And that was the idea behind it. So I started the conversation with them about 3 weeks prior to me actually going to Europe. And it took a little while to actually convince my grandfather to leave. I think, as we saw in the news, the Ukrainian people are a little strong-willed, to say the least.
No kidding.
And there was some stubbornness there. And of course, I mean, it's his whole life, his whole livelihood is built in an area in his home where his wife, my grandmother, is buried, right? And to leave all that behind and say, hey, I'm never coming back, is a very, very difficult decision to make. And he had to make it first. So I said, I will put everything in motion. I'll figure everything out, but I need Grandpa to say, yes, I'm leaving.
Of course.
Yeah.
That was the biggest hurdle. And it took about 2 weeks for that to happen.
When's the last time you seen him before you went and picked him up?
He was actually, so he visits my mom. He has a American visa, which made it
A lot
a
easier.
US
Probably
visa, so it
substantially
made it
easier.
easier to get him here. But right before COVID started, so he was here right when COVID hit, or when the news said the COVID hit, right? And so that
Two different things.
was it 2020? And so he was actually stuck here because of COVID, because Ukraine did not let anybody back in.
Right.
So anyway, so long story short, it was right when COVID hit, so about 2 years ago.
Okay.
Little
So
over 2 years ago.
So I'm glad you brought up the news thing, because as somebody that certainly does, I don't watch the news a whole lot, right? I'm certainly not a big news watcher, which is probably why I can be happy and positive most of the time. But I have no real clue what's going on over there, and I don't think the news portrays it like what's really going on over there anyway. So watching the news, I don't know that really helps you, but I know that I watched a Russian warship launch a bunch of freaking missiles off of it the other day, like not live footage, but real footage of a Russian warship, and read that there have been 120 aircrafts that have been taken out. These are Russian aircrafts, so I can only imagine how many Ukrainian aircrafts, but 121 aircrafts, this many helicopters, and so on and so forth. I mean, there's a real war going on over there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what
that's
are
the
you
one
hearing?
thing, regardless of what side you're on, regardless of what you see in the news, and what different news channels are saying. And I'm like you, I try not to associate with the news too much. I read headlines more than I read, because I think, like, if you read beyond the headline, it's more somebody else's opinion,
Right.
which is none of my business, right? And so all the headlines, if you look at the common denominator, is that there's people dying, and there's a real war going on right now. Yeah.
And what's really crazy to me too is not only just obviously what's going on, but like you mentioned, Ukrainians a little stubborn, but I think it's so much pride in who they are as a people and the nationality that, I mean, you've got extremely famous Ukrainians, whether it be athletes, whatever it is, out there on the front lines defending the country, which I think is cool, because when you're somebody who's got some fame or something like that, it's very easy to find a way to get away from conflict. But the Ukrainian people, it seems like they're like, this is our country, this is our homeland, we're going to do whatever we have to do to protect it.
Which is why it was hard to convince my grandpa to leave.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But what are you hearing from your family? Like, I mean, you mentioned bombs driving the backyard. I mean, has there been anything in proximity? Has there been close calls? Is it really like wild over there for him, or what?
So I get reports every single day. It's so I spoke to my cousin earlier today, and he said that like where he is, they can actually see the rockets being launched or flying over their head. Now the interesting part is that they can launch rockets 200, 300, 400 miles away and hit a precise area within a couple meters, right? So they're very, very accurate. But what they're doing is they're targeting more military bases in some areas. And what's hard, I think, for me to really understand, because some of the news is saying civilians are dying, and so of course there's going to be casualties. I understand that, but most of everything that's been reported to me has been more military is what's been targeted. But with that being said, real people are dying.
Yeah.
My grandfather was 2 kilometers, he said, walking distance from a military airfield.
Wow.
And the day that it started happening, I mean, he can hear the bombs in the background.
Wow.
That's incredible. So walk us through the journey. I know you said it was a logistical nightmare. I saw that you didn't sleep much. I saw that you were, somehow maintained some sort of normalcy as far as energy levels, but it didn't look like you had a whole lot of sleep. It did look like a lot of traveling. So let's just take the journey. I know you documented the process too, so we'll certainly link that in the description as soon as you have like the vlog up. But take us day by day. Like you left a couple weeks ago now, and how long did that trip take, and so on and so forth.
Golly, so it started with us trying to convince my grandfather, right? So once we were able to do that, the next thing was to try to find him passage from where he was, which is right outside of what's called Biela Tserkva, which is outside of Kiev. And so from let's just say Kiev over to the border, and it's about a 7-8 hour ride. So Ukraine's actually pretty big.
And is this a border that obviously the opposite side of the part of the border is Russia?
Yeah, to Poland. Yeah.
Okay.
So what I did is somebody actually posted on Instagram where their brother in Ukraine, former military colonel, retired, was actually a missionary for a church that they would pick up people and ship them over to the border.
Wow.
Ship them, I mean, put them in a car and take them over there.
Yeah.
And so I sent him a message. I'm like, hey, do you think that maybe your brother could pick up my grandfather? Because my grandfather, where he lived, was on the way.
Is this a social media message?
It was a social
Wow.
media message.
Incredible.
Yeah. And so this was my cousin's wife. Her brother in Ukraine was the one doing all that. And so I messaged them, and they communication was spotty to them. So me and my cousin's wife, it was easy to talk, but to her brother, messages, of course, are getting delayed. And so while I'm waiting for an answer from them on that, I'm like, well, I need backup, right? I need another source. Need to figure out another way to get them there. And so I messaged my friend in Germany, and I said, hey, so my plan was I'm going to go to Germany, and I'm going to wait until I can figure out how I can get my grandfather to the border. That was my original plan. That's all I had.
Solid.
And the reason
really detailed.
Yeah. And the reason behind
and your
that
wife
was
and 4 kids are like, I hope it's not a long time. Not more than 2-3 weeks, please.
Well, my wife has no idea I'm doing any of this yet.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
that's a whole other story.
Okay.
Ask forgiveness.
We'll make sure we dive into that portion, right? How that discussion went and all, because that's, yeah.
So she's been great throughout the whole thing. But so my idea was I'm going to get to Germany, because then I'm only about 3 hours flight, and car. So 3 hours flight travel time, if you will, with, getting to the airport,
right.
Coming off the airplane, to the border. So if I had to go meet my grandfather in Poland at the border of Ukraine, I would do that. And that was the original plan. So I was trying to figure out a way to get him to the border, and I really didn't have anything else planned at that time. So this is like a Thursday is when I'm like, okay, well, I should be buying a plane ticket any day now. And then I messaged my friend. I'm like, hey, can I stay with you while I figure the rest of this out? I want to be as close as I can to where all this is happening. And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. By the way, which city is your grandfather in? And I said, well, he's in Biela Tserkva, which is Kiev, outside of Kiev. And he said, well, I have a friend of mine who he is doing the same thing with his grandmother. Well, his friend also happens to be one of the people that works with him for their company. And so we get in touch with Roman. We do a WhatsApp group chat. And me and Roman start talking. He's like, if there's a way for your grandfather to get to the border, I will go and meet him and his grandma, and then bring them all to Germany. And I said, okay, well, let me figure that part out. So while I was trying to figure that part out, Roman said, I'm going to call the bus that my grandmother is going to be on and see if they're going to be going through your grandfather's town. Because if they are, they might just stop and pick him up.
Jeez.
Well, that fell through because the bus, once they leave an area, they fill it with as many refugees as they can, and then they don't stop until they're at the border because it's not safe.
Yeah.
And they also make everybody turn off their cell phones, and the bus drivers use some kind of communication device that cannot be heard outside of them talking to each other, just so that way nobody can track which direction these buses are headed.
That's
so
awesome.
basically, you get on the bus and then you're blind for the next 10 hours or however long it takes you to get to the border. So that did not work. And then talking to my cousin's like, well, I work for somebody who's in charge of transportation for the entire country, the railway systems and the bus systems. And so he's like, I will talk to my dad and make sure my dad can bring him to Lviv, which is one of the major cities right before the border of Poland.
Right.
And this is in Ukraine. And so it just so happened that they drove my grandfather to Lviv, and my cousin actually not only picked up my grandfather, but picked up Roman's grandmother, who ended up being in the same city.
Wow.
And then he took both of them, put them on another bus, and then they drove to the border, where Roman then flew, rented a car, and picked him up at the border. They got a hotel room, got on the next flight out from Poland to Germany, where I was at the time.
That is wild.
Incredible.
So super, like I said, logistical nightmare. That was...
How many of those conversations were like middle of the night? I mean, obviously, once you got over to Germany, you're in a similar time zone. But, from here, communicating with your cousins and, whoever, I mean, it's got to be like, you got to be going all hours.
Yes. And so that was the other thing is, I didn't sleep for 3 days during travel, but probably for a week prior to that, I would stay up until like 1, 2 o'clock communicating with them.
Yeah.
And then I would wake up at 5, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, get my phone and start messaging them some more. So there was a lot of back and forth, and I was, I'm the middleman between several different parties trying to figure everything out. So that was a pain. But if you ask anybody, I mean, if you ask Justin, if you ask my wife, if you ask any of my friends, I function very, very well with very little sleep.
Reminds me of someone I know.
I don't use any foreign substances. No. I don't do drugs. I drink a hell of a lot of coffee. But that's basically it,
So at what part in all of this did your wife finally find out what was happening? Because I can only imagine how that would happen in my household.
All right. So on Friday, we're trying to get my grandfather on the bus where Roman's grandmother is going to be. That falls through. Friday night, which is their Saturday morning.
And you still hadn't left. You obviously were still in the States when you're still trying to arrange the bus and all that.
I'm right here. This is where I was trying to figure all this out. And then my uncle said, your grandfather will be at the border or on the bus to the border in Lviv with my cousin in 8 hours. So I said, okay.
I need a direct flight to Germany, nonstop.
So on Saturday morning, I buy my plane ticket to leave the next day on Sunday. And then I call my wife and I say, hey, here's what I've been planning for the last 3 weeks, and I have to go to Germany tomorrow.
Oh, my goodness.
And that was via text message.
Even better.
Oh gosh! But obviously, she's been gracious through the whole process, and wasn't overly concerned. She didn't stop you.
No, she was very concerned, but she didn't let me know I was concerned. I think
she supported you.
The best part about it is, and while I was there, I knew she was having a hard time with the kids. I got a 10-year-old, right? That's my oldest. Then I have a 7-year-old. I have a 5-year-old, and then I have a 1.5-year-old who still wakes up a couple times at night. Mm-hmm. And so, not once through this did she ever say, "Hey, I'm having a hard time." Like, she didn't make me feel like,
you were adding in an extra burden.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I know what you mean.
That was, I'm very blessed that she's in my life for sure.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
What's the overall sentiment of your family over there? Like, are they living in fear currently? Are they, do they feel like, well, I mean, mainly military bases and things, think we're kind of safe? I mean, how do they like? And this is totally not even the same, but I just it's the only experience that I have. Like I look at Floridians, and hurricanes can be coming at a Category 5, and Floridians are like, it's just it's another hurricane. Like we're fine. And I know that's a bad example, but I mean, are they just blocking it out and saying, hey, it's going to be fine, or like what's the sentiment?
No, quite the opposite. I spoke,
Really?
and again, I spoke to my cousin today, and he said, so he got married 6 months ago. And he said, 6 months ago, I was talking about getting married, or, I was thinking about getting married, having children, building a career. He said, now, every morning I wake up thinking, when is the day going to come that I have to pick up a rifle and go fight? Like he said, my entire life's plans have just changed.
Yeah, I guess. I guess
the reality is setting in.
I mean, and that's the thought, I guess. It's like you're going to have to pick up a rifle and go fight for your country.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you're walking outside and you look up and you can see rockets and missiles getting shot,
That's wild.
within eyesight. That's crazy.
Yeah. And then like my grandfather, for example, so he said that 2 bombs were dropped on on the airport, basically in his backyard. His house, his neighborhood backed up to an airfield, military airfield. And they were so strong that not only my grandfather's pretty hard of hearing, it woke him up.
Wow.
And my uncle had to fix some of the siding on their house. Like, I mean, they took some of the siding.
Oh, wow.
Off the home.
Wow.
Yeah. So they felt it. I mean, it wasn't, it's not like, oh, okay, there, here's some noises. It's real,
Man, I gotta know, like, obviously, talking to you, it really is crazy. I mean, a lot of times we have a lot more banter. It's like back and forth and things. I just want to listen to this story, like in its entirety, right? It's kind of got me like, wow. And
perspective for sure.
Right. Perspective, big time. There's been, scammers out there trying to get money for relief. And there's been, there's different things you've seen come of this, but obviously, people like you are helping in some way, shape, or form. I think anybody watching this, I think myself, Sean included, I think you feel like, hey, how can we help? I mean, is there anything that we can do to help as a community? I mean, as a podcast that may get some views down the road, I'm curious. Is there anything we can do to help make a little difference?
I think that if you're going to give money, you want to give money to a credible source,
of course.
And you want to do your research. I would not really. I would find somebody that so somebody so like, for example, like my cousin's brother, right? She's or my cousin's wife's brother. She's collected money and she's been able to give money, but I would say any church, any organization, like any kind of church that has missionaries that maybe we're sending people to. And I know Florida has a big Russian community, Ukrainian community.
Yeah. Even local here in Sarasota, even.
Yeah.
Know quite a few.
Yeah. And so like you just really just be, if you're wanting to give, just pay attention to who you're giving to.
Mm-hmm.
I was overwhelmed by so many people's generosity. Like people who had my cell phone number, I would wake up with, $1,000 in my PayPal, like,
Wow.
Here you go, grandfather relief, whatever. Right. And so it was really, really nice that people do that kind of stuff. But everybody who gave to me is somebody who they knew personally.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you just want to make sure that you don't just give blindly, that you give with intention,
Well, even beyond just like financially, I mean, is there like items that are not coming in now that they were? I mean, like I don't, like I said, pretty oblivious to the whole situation. Like, I mean, is people sending packages? That whole.
Yes. Yeah. So, and that's the other thing. So if you find a local organization like a church, for example, that is collecting clothes, collecting belongings. I know in Sacramento, and I'm actually flying out to Sacramento on Friday to take my grandfather to my mom's house. But if you find a local church, for example, that is sending stuff. They usually have a list of needs that they're collecting. But I know a lot of different organizations that are accepting donations outside of money, right? Where they're shipping boxes to, let's say, neighboring countries like Moldova and Poland, and then they're taking those and bringing them across the border and actually distributing them to some of the people there.
That's wild.
Incredible.
Is there any end in sight? Like, keeping up with the political side of it. I mean, is it gonna be wrapped up? Is it continuing on? I mean, I know that Ukrainians are fighting, right, big time,
effectively, from what it sounds like too.
I don't know. I was telling you before, like I'm following it more on the surface level as far as headlines go, and then the reports that I get back from my family. But as far as how long or when it's going to be over, I don't know. I mean, you hear different things, and you hear they're negotiating and that they're talking. I don't think there's much talking going on. Who knows? That's a hard one to answer. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, we have a lot of fun on this podcast. We do a lot of fun stuff and joke around and talk about hobbies and passions and things like this. But it's been cool to talk about this specifically. I can tell you that we have kind of a media outlet, small media outlet, and as soon as I saw a story, I'm like, man, when he gets back, I definitely want to hear the story. What was the biggest challenge while you were traveling? I mean, other than the travels and the logistics itself, I mean, was there difficulty getting your grandpa back in the States, or the visa made it a piece of cake? Is all of that kind of smooth now, or what?
So it was smooth, but the biggest challenge had to do with vaccine requirements.
Yeah.
And it had to do with the airlines themselves being sticklers, for lack of better words.
Yeah, having a vaccination card
and all that. Yeah, and so a lot of people in Ukraine are not vaccinated. And so having to get my grandfather here. I'm standing there for 40 minutes arguing with them back and forth, saying, you need to read your rules. And at one point, I had to threaten the airline, saying, your airline is preventing a Ukrainian refugee from entering the United States. Said, that's not something you probably want to get on the news for.
Right. Yeah.
And so they're like, just let them through and let America deal with them. And so, where
was this?
This was in Turkey.
Wow.
No, I'm sorry. This was in Germany. Turkey was actually really, really easy, surprisingly. Germany actually made it difficult. So standing at the ticketing booth in Germany, we had a hard time convincing them to let my grandfather on.
So you need a vaccination card to leave Germany to go to the United. That's a Germany thing? That's a German thing, or that's a U.S. thing, or what? I mean,
I think it's both. So a United States citizen can come back without being vaccinated as long as you have proof of a negative test within the last 24 hours,
yeah,
or whatever. But if you're not a U.S. citizen, you have to have a proof of vaccine to come to America. However,
unless you're a refugee.
Well, yes, they just changed that rule a week prior to us trying to board the airplane, and I was able to find the article at the U.S. Embassy's website.
Oh my gosh!
And I found the article that said that there's no requirement, not even a negative test, which we had, but no negative test and no vaccine requirement. And so I'm like, here's the proof, and they still were like, we don't want to. I'm like, well, then you're going to have to end up on the news because I will scream.
For real.
Yeah, no doubt.
No kidding. I mean, go figure, a freaking virus that's been going on for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And now
allegedly
somewhat under control, most would say, I think. And it's preventing people from leaving a war zone. Mm-hmm. That's wild.
Yeah. But there's right now they're saying that they eased all those requirements, so that's
that's
definitely
good. Yeah.
I'm glad. I mean, I Googled it. I didn't know. I was talking out of my ass.
I think.
And then hoping that Google would back me up, and Google backed me up. So.
Thank you, Google.
Typical salesman, right?
That's right.
Typical sales.
Yeah.
It's like just like when you sold that first policy, when you didn't know the difference between a deductible and a copay.
Yeah.
You got any plans?
Your deductible is gonna be $20 per visit.
Yeah, right. Do you had any plans to go back or what?
I am. Trying to
getting anybody else out of there, or those types of things.
So that's in the works now. I'm trying to help more people out of there if I can. But they may be a little bit more difficult than my grandfather, because my grandfather had a visa, so it made it a little bit easier. But now I'm working with people who don't have visas at all.
Are these family members or like friends of friends?
Yeah.
Okay.
Family. So I, in particular, without going into too much detail on that one, the logistics right now of that is them flying to Tijuana and then me driving into Mexico, getting them in my car and then driving them back.
Wow. Wow.
So I'm trying to, I have a friend of mine who's actually going through the same process right now, where they're in Tijuana putting people in their cars, and the border agents are saying as long as the driver has a U.S. passport and citizenship, that they're not really checking anybody else in the car. I don't know. That's going to be the next project. But again, it's getting them out of Ukraine first. If I can get them out of Ukraine, I can get them to Mexico, and then I'll just fly to San Diego and drive over the border.
Yeah.
Wow.
Incredible.
How many of these trips you think you're going to take? As many as it takes?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right now there's no plans in the near future to take any. But it's like with my grandfather, if I had to fly out tomorrow, I'm going to fly out tomorrow.
Yeah, that's an evolving situation.
If there's a need, like, hey, here's, shit's hitting the fan, then I'm going to go. Yeah.
Man, oh man. Well, awesome. You got anything else you're thinking about this specific, the trip?
Not the trip itself. I mean, I can only think of how difficult logistically it is to try to organize, a 75-year-old man getting on a random bus across the globe, basically via text message or Instagram DMs. When I think about like trying to go pick somebody up in this day and age, it's like I got to text them when I'm there. I got to call them. I got to tell them what car. Like it's real time, and it's difficult to like arrange things like that. Like you think of how many times you call an Uber and you're like, well, where's my Uber? It just said it's here. And meanwhile, it's all GPS. So the fact that you were able to do that, whether it was easy or not, highly impressive. But also it kind of comes full circle to what, Brad and I talk about all the time with, being in insurance in this industry and what it allows, because, you were with Bank of America to start your career. I worked for Chase and SunTrust and Wells Fargo. As lenient as people that you work with may be in scenarios, you're dealing with an organization, but like, think about if you're still working that W-2 job at the bank and you're like Saturday morning, but like, I'm not going to be in Monday, I'm going to be in Germany. And it's like all the hell and just crap that you'd get for it, and, potentially risk losing a job. Whereas,
and even if you were let off the hook to go, you're not getting freaking paid more than likely.
And the beauty of this business is that it gives you that flexibility and the freedom to do things that you need to do on the spot and not have to worry about any repercussions, which I think's awesome. That's one of the coolest things about the insurance industry to me, is the flexibility and the freedom that we have in scenarios like this.
Well, and to build on that just a little bit, there's some people are still, their career, right? So insurance agents, they're still, their job still controls them, right? Yeah. And so, you really have to start thinking about putting yourself in a position to where if I had to pick up and leave right away to go somewhere, can I still continue to do my business from anywhere in the world, right? And you guys are a virtual office, right? You guys do a lot of phone sales. And so there's a lot of agents that, they live paycheck to paycheck. They write the bare minimum to get by, plus whatever the renewal is.
Yep.
But they still are driving face to face, which there's nothing wrong with that. But you want to put yourself in a position where if a client calls you and says, hey, can you look something up for me? You can do that from anywhere in the country. Or, hey, I have my husband who's turning 65. Can you please write him a policy? You can do that without having to get in your car and go there.
Yep. Yeah, and I know you're doing your part for sure in educating agents in that regard, right? I mean, you've got all the training Okay, you got
Yeah.
403 subscribers on the YouTube channel now, and video after video after video of how to sell virtually, right?
Yeah.
I just did a video recently, doing some of the same things, selling over the phone, talking to individuals over the phone, and you've built a career out of it. So, I applaud you there. I'm definitely curious, right, as to what you learned when you were in Germany, because you spent some time with a marketing organization, and I know that the word funnels was used, but how do you just go on a rescue mission to rescue grandpa, end up in Germany, and then you're like honing your craft with marketing stuff, like just randomly?
So the people who helped me, my friend in
Roman.
Germany, their dad is a public speaker
Okay.
who has over 30 years of experience building businesses. And so they were putting on an event. I think there was like 200 something people there, where they were teaching them, kind of like how you and I would go to an event,
Yeah,
right? 'Cause you're
Medicare
speaking
Con. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
right.
So very similar to that, but it's their version of it, and they do everything with funnels. We do everything insurance related, right? So we pretty much have one sphere of focus, which is insurance,
Right.
which is the conferences that we attend. But they are marketing to all kinds of businesses trying to promote. So same thing. It's
Right.
just they're
Their
not
target
any one
market's
particular. Yeah.
wide.
Yeah. And so but what I like about what they do, so whenever they put on one of these events, and sometimes they'll do like 6 in a year. So I mean, like,
Yeah,
on
that's a
pretty
lot of
big scale.
logistics.
Yeah. Every event that they do, they try to raise money from the attendees. They try to raise money, and then they have a charity where they give that money to. So,
Wow.
in this past one, I think they raised almost $100,000.
Wow.
Out of the 200 people that attended, for a charity, and the charity that they're raising money for happens to help orphans from Ukraine
Wow.
and children that were displaced because of all this. So that's something that's really cool, and it's my friend and his family that were putting that on, and I just wanted to go and attend and just to feel the energy. Of course, it was in a different language, so I couldn't understand most of it, but I didn't have to because the energy
You can
was
see,
the
yeah,
same.
you can see what's going on. You can feel it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's cool.
You don't
And
speak
so I
German?
actually,
You speak
what'd you
Russian.
say?
You speak Russian and Ukrainian. You don't speak German?
No, yeah, not yet.
Well, you better work on your German, and you better work
I
on
know, right?
your Spanish if you're going to Mexico.
Exactly.
Right.
But I'm working on putting a video of all of this together, which you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. And I actually interviewed, so my friend who helped me by connecting me to Roman, and he let me stay in his place. And then Roman, with his grandma and what she went through, and then my grandfather. So I'm putting all that together. I made videos of all that stuff. And it just so happened that the interview that I did with the both of them were at their event. So you'll actually see like their logos and their branding and all
That's
that
awesome.
stuff.
That's cool. Very cool.
I'll tell you, I met a guy from Germany on an airplane once named Klaus, and I'm still connected with him on Facebook, and
Yeah.
he does public speaking all over the country, but or all over the world. I'm sorry, internationally. But one of the sharpest dudes. It was one of the times I sat in first class. Right, sometimes I'll buy a first class ticket, and you'll always meet interesting people. I met that guy, we connected, and awesome guy. I actually learned a lot from him in the hour or so that we were there. So I'm sure it was a sharp conference, and you could have picked up a lot in that language. But man, that's awesome.
Somebody actually told me one time that if you want some really good networking experience, go to a really, really high-end restaurant, like a high-end steakhouse, right, where it's $150 an ounce or whatever,
Right.
and go sit at their bar in the middle of the day.
Absolutely. Meet some good people.
Yeah.
Yeah, or buy
Definitely.
first class plane tickets, right?
Might be a little
write-off
cheaper
anyways.
than the steakhouse.
Yeah. Well, man, I really appreciate anything. Obviously, give you a chance real quick. Plug your YouTube channel and where people can find you. And hey, in the event you go on another rescue mission, you want to stay connected to people as best we can, because we'd love to help you out. So go ahead and tell people where they can find you.
So if you just YouTube Eugene Marchenko, I love helping agents. I love helping them learn how I learned, right, which is shadowing and watching somebody. And I think the biggest thing that actually helped me when I first started is I would ride shoulder to shoulder with somebody, face to face, watch them in appointments. I had my manager who let me sit in on his presentations, right? And so that's kind of the whole idea behind my channel, is for you to be able to experience what a sales call looks like. I do everything virtually over the phone. I used to do it face to face. I don't think there's really a whole lot of difference in terms of the presentation one way or the other.
Sure.
There's certain things that you do differently when you're warming up with somebody, but that's what my channel is about. If you want to learn, how to sell, if you want to learn about different products, there's plenty of good channels out there. But my channel, so Eugene Marchenko is the name of the channel, which is my name.
We'll link it in the description because Marchenko might get misspelled by some people.
Yeah, but it's just live conversations that I'm having with leads, with my own leads, because I'm selling full time actively. So.
Yeah, I love
Very
it.
cool. Very cool.
I love it, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it. I can't wait to get this out because I know some people were I definitely saw a little buzz around the journey. Rightly so. It's quite the thing to watch, but even more so to experience, I'm sure. So
everybody loves Grandpa,
Yeah, that's right.
He's famous on the internet now, at least in our little small insurance community.
I think if I taught him how to sell a policy over the phone, I think my channel would just blow up.
I think your agency would blow up.
Yeah,
I think there'd be a lot of 70-year-olds beating down your door to learn how to sell over the phone.
Exactly.
In every different language too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen.
But I appreciate you both.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on and absolutely be praying for the family. Listen, we had some fun, but it's a serious topic. I literally can't imagine. I mean, I've got no family outside the country, but if my family in Colorado or if my family in another state even was going through wildfires or anything, it would be hard to sleep at night. It would be hard to, imagine what that would feel like. So, we'll be praying for the family and obviously sending all the good vibes and everything over there. Hopefully that does come to an end soon. And anybody else that we can get out of there, would love to help you. So keep in touch on that stuff as well. And we'll stay up to date with your next journey.
Thank you. Yeah, cool. It's coming up on Friday, so stay tuned.
What? The video. Okay, I thought
it's going to Sacramento.
I'm taking my grandfather to California.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The last part of the journey.
The last part.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what finally.
Very cool.
He's actually outside breaking my leaves. I'm serious. He's like, I need a rake. I'm like, why do you need a rake? He's like, because your yard looks like crap.
He's bored, man. 75.
Yeah.
He looked. I'll tell you what. 75 doesn't look 75. I saw the videos, when you're coming back with him and everything. He's quite the active 75-year-old. So I think if push came to shove and he did need to run, he probably could have, but better that he doesn't have to, right?
He kicked my ass walking around the different cities we were in. I was struggling, and he just, all right, let's go, keep up. I'm like, all right. That's
wild. Well, say hey to Gramps for us, and again, thanks so much for coming on. We'll see you soon.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you. Bye, guys.